Hello class, this is JessicaMladenka, and today I'll be discussing the scenario planning and organizational intervention. Scenario planning and its purposes. Scenario planning is using an elaborate and alternative scenario to better prepare for the future. This was developed in the 1960s by Shell Oil and Gas, and it was to better plan for possible economic and oil demand conditions for the mid-70s. The goal for Shell was to develop that plan of action for almost any circumstances. Strengths in scenario planning. Helps to avoid costly surprises, will allow managers to predict and adjust as they see fit, will aid in mitigating risks, and also helps with change, which, let's face it, every great company will be changing and evolving, and scenario planning will help them to go through that with more ease. Weaknesses in scenario planning. Companies cannot prepare for every possible outcome for every situation. Another weakness would be upper management may not always agree for the best way of handling certain situations. So you could have multiple things come up and each manager want to handle things differently. So it's coming together on figuring out through these scenarios what is the best. So what is the scenario planning process? Well, to start off with, the scenario planning team is formed. The group then determines the interests and the outcomes of what they're hoping to achieve through this scenario planning. Then they will explore and gather the facts and analyze them to create the scenarios. Finally, it is creating the scenarios. They take the facts which they previously gathered and create the storyline, finding future alternatives. A good scenario would have decision-making power, which means a decision could be made based off of the scenario. A good scenario would also be plausible. How likely or believable would this scenario be? It would also have alternatives. What other outcomes could come out of this scenario? It would have consistency, and it should be consistent within that storyline. It would have differentiation, which means each scenario could be a little bit different from the previous scenario. It would need to be memorable, and it would also need to challenge the current way of doing things. Some of the driving factors or forces behind creating scenario plannings is internal and external factors. So external factors could be market forces, such as a change in the market, which forces the suppliers to change because of consumers. So maybe there's more consumption or, like I said, a shift in the market. Then there could be cost forces. So something has happened where economic-wise it makes sense for the company to change their strategy. There also could be government forces, which means it's out of the control of the company or business, and the government may have put stipulations on them, or a change in how they have to do business has been implemented by the government. And then some of your internal factors could be, you could have a high turnover within management or supervisors, and having to bring new people on board. So that would change your strategy for how you're trying to handle the business. You could also have a major accident or incident at work in the business that causes the company to have to reevaluate and plan for how they're going to handle things. Ultimately, by scenario planning and analyzing the company and its employees can better prepare for the future. Thanks for listening. I hope you found this information useful.